Welcome to the showroom here at Keyboard Exchange International. My name is Jim Huss, and as I've said in several of our previous interviews, that we make great effort to gather the finest B3s and other Hammond organs from all over the United States and bring them here to our shop in Sanford, Florida. But we also realize that not everyone wants the finest conditioned furniture. If you're anything like me, when I was looking for my first organ in my youth, I just wanted one. I was so passionate about the sound. I didn't care what it looked like as long as it played and sounded great. So we put a lot of emphasis on collecting the finest, but we also realize, and we have to be aware, that not everybody needs to pay for the finest. Now, if you have a brand new church, of course, you're going to want the finest instrument, something that's going to sound great, look great, and last for decades. Well, even our trade-ins are going to last for decades because we have a great restoration protocol. So we're going to just show you around the showroom a little bit now. And we have Zach on camera today. He's the newest team member here at Keyboard Exchange International. He's a Full Sail graduate. Shout out to all you Full Sail graduates, and hope that you'll get involved with us similar to the way Zach has become involved. More details on that later, but I'm going to ask Zach to just kind of show you around the showroom. You'll be seeing some of the finest instruments we've ever had in our 51 years in business because of the emphasis on finding the best ones from all over the country. But then we're going to go into the electronic shop, where today, coincidentally, we're working on some that have some rough edges, but we're going to make them sound great, and we're going to sell them at very budget-friendly prices. So Zach, if you'd be so kind, show the good folks around the showroom and meet me in the electronic shop, please. So welcome to the electronic shop, where, please excuse the clutter, but this is a working shop and there's a lot of things going on all the time. So today we have Mr. Rick McLean back there working. You can't see him right now, but soon you will. And we have Randolph Carter over here busy at work. Our other technicians out of town at the moment, Mr. Brian Strong, another senior technician. So Zach, why don't you and I kind of go over, and I'll explain this B3 that we're working on that Brian is kind of in the middle of at the moment. I should mention that Mr. Michael Benebig is the musician playing in the background, a world-class musician, good friend of ours, someone I met many decades ago, and hopefully he's going to be visiting with us again soon. Sometime later this year, where he'll be making a series of videos on how to play jazz. And he's a classically trained musician. In fact, his livelihood is in teaching classical music to students in a school in New Caledonia, where he is got a great reputation. But at some point he decided he was also interested in jazz organ, and he's just a world-class player. Plays bass pedals just like he had hands instead of feet. I'm always telling Randolph about Michael Benebig and his extraordinary skill with his bass pedal, so he's going to share some of that information with us. But this B3 is a B3 that we actually acquired locally. It had been in storage for some years, and we found that the original power amplifier was probably something that we should rebuild, but instead we're going to take a preamplifier that's already rebuilt, and we know it had a great sound because it came out of a great instrument, where the new owner wanted to have a Trek 2 solid state preamp to give him the advantage of tonal adjustments and reverb. So when we took these, in fact, we made a video where we actually showed the organ being played with the preamp that's going into this organ. And then we showed that same organ with the Trek 2 preamp. So the preamp going into this is going to be the preamp that you already heard. So now what I like about this instrument is it's got a certain character and patina in it that we're not going to refinish. We're going to leave this organ with its historic collection of scratches and road rash. It is a road warrior, of that there is no doubt. And the gentleman who played it for many, many years, but he took good care of it. Not great care, but it's really hard to keep them looking like new if you're traveling around the countryside with them. So anybody who wants a great deal on this instrument, the price is going to be right. And if you're interested, you should give us a call and express interest in number 409. It's going to be something special. The Leslie that's going to go with it is the Leslie that came with it, a short 142 model, and it'll match in terms of the general appearance. It does come with the bench and it does come with the pedals, but it doesn't have the music rack or the folding wooden top, which makes it an ideal candidate to put a third keyboard sitting on the top, because you have to take the music rack off for that anyway. So Brian Strong, senior technician who's not here today, is going to be wrapping this up in the next couple of weeks. He's almost finished with this C3, which is a real beauty. Came to us looking like this. It has not been refinished, and it doesn't require it. So he's gone through that. He was just waiting for some new parts to install, and that's going to be a fine instrument when we're finished with it. One of the reasons I wanted to make this video today is because everything in the shop today is what I'd call budget friendly. And it's a rare treat to actually catch Mr. Rick McLean hard at work. No, Rick is a great worker. He does a lot of wonderful repairs, and he's the go-to guy when we have a technical problem that maybe we haven't seen before. And even if Rick hasn't seen it before, he really contributes to the figuring out process. So Rick, if you could tell folks a little bit about what you've done to this A100 and what you need to do to finish it up, and any other comments you'd like to make, we'd love to hear from you.
Alrighty. Well, basically, when we get these organs in here, we treat them as a diamond in the rough. So we go through, replace the key cones and the upstop felts so they have a nice, clean, soft upstop sound to them. We replace the capacitors in the line box if they're of the wax capacitor type, so that you have a nice smooth vibrato. And then down in here, I've got this upended here. We're replacing the resistors that we feel are the most likely to fail in the future based upon previous experience. And these two, the amplifier down here to the right and the amplifier over to the left, the reverb amp, that's already been rebuilt. So when we finish this, we'll add a kit for the Leslie and we'll be done.
So Rick, were you finished giving your explanation? Did we get everything that we wanted to say said? Thank you very much, Mr. Rick McLean. And those comments I made about catching you at work, those comments were entirely uncalled for, and I apologize, Rick, if it came off wrong. Would you accept my apology, sir?
Sure, but if you like, you got to let me thump you one time first.
A lot of days we just like to have some fun while we're here, and hopefully that shows through our videos. I just asked Randolph to cover the work that he was doing. Not that it's top secret or anything, but frankly, it was too ugly to put in the video. I mean, that organ, those keyboards are what came out of this organ.
Yes, it is.
And because of their ugliness and abuse over the years,
We rather not show.
yeah, we don't want that to show. What we want to show is the keyboards we're putting in there. So why don't you give an explanation of what you're doing, what you've done, what you've did over there as far as gathering parts, etc.
Well, thinking in terms of longevity with these instruments, we try our best to preserve them as best as possible, maybe for another 50 years, as we have done thus far. I was actually in the process of removing all of the valuable parts because years from now they may not be readily available. So I was in the middle of that, but at the same time, I'm working on this beauty here. It's an Ebony organ that started its life as a B2,
Yes, it did.
but
But now we have parts in there that came out of, or could have been used in a B3.
B3 is.
In this particular case, I believe they came out of an A100. And I think you made a video recently where you were actually repairing
Yeah.
some wires that never got attached
At
at
the
the
company.
factory. I thought that was actually a very splendid video showing the internals of the instrument. So the same keyboards that Randolph had shown in his recent repair work are now going into this instrument, formerly a B2. Now that B2 that you're just harvesting some parts from did not have smooth pulling drawbars,
Right.
which this A100 set of parts does have. And the real reason I think we went in this direction after we talked about it was the generator was really the problem.
Yes.
There were defects in the generator that weren't really worthy of restoring. I mean, I suppose it could have been, but it's a lot more efficient to take like an A100 or a C3 that has cabinet furniture issues, but everything else about it is just fine. All right. So what Randolph is doing is he's combining two organs to make one great instrument. Now, you might not know this, Randolph, but when the B3 was first made,
Okay.
B2 owners would occasionally send the organ back to the factory, or technicians and dealers might order the parts needed to put percussion and smooth drawbars onto a B2.
Wow.
Now, we've done things like that. In this case, it's very important to have an accurate historical record of what has been done. This organ will never be a B3. It will have a B2 serial number inside, but it will look like a B3. It will sound like a B3.
Have all the parts of a B3.
It'll have all the same parts you would find in a B3, but this is going to be like somewhere in the neighborhood of half the price of a B3 in comparable condition.
Wow.
But just in terms of historical accuracy, Keyboard Exchange would always want to make sure that whoever does acquire this knows started out as a B2.
B2.
We've upgraded it because the B2 parts were simply too ugly
Too ugly. Too
and,
worn.
and defective, right? So knowing that, we took the opportunity to make a substantial upgrade. Now the fact that this is ebony with gold trim,
That's already an upgrade.
that's a nice upgrade. And that's maybe primarily one of the main reasons we acquired this instrument, to be able to have an ebony instrument at a low budget-friendly price.
And I think one of the things that's going to be phenomenal about this instrument is the fact that, speaking along the lines of upgrades, if you can focus in on the back, it's actually going to have a solid-state Trek preamp installed as well.
Ah, that's interesting. Because that actually came with the A100 that we got the keyboards from.
Correct.
So that was very logical to use all those parts, yeah. That was your idea. I think it was a great idea. We'll have to see how that sounds.
Okay.
We still may revert back to putting an AO28 amp in there,
Okay.
but if it sounds great with the Trek amp, leave well enough alone because those amps are highly reliable, as we both know.
Absolutely.
Seemed like there's one other point I wanted to make while we're talking here. Can't think of what it is actually, Randolph. So why don't you take us out with whatever closing comments you would like to mention.
Well, thank you for viewing us. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and even comment. So have a blessed day. We hope you enjoyed this footage that we've provided for you on today. God bless.